On February 28, 1997, at 9:17 a.m., officers of the Los Angeles Police Department became involved in a fierce gun battle. Not since the 1974 gun battle with the Symbionese Liberation Army had officers faced as violent and destructive a firefight. For the next few minutes, we'll look back at the 45-minute incident. But first, some background. There had been similar robberies in the area. In May of 1996, men armed with assault rifles robbed two San Fernando Valley branches of Bank of America. They entered those banks wearing dark clothing over body armor. In both takeover-style robberies, they fired shots into the air and ordered everyone onto the floor. They netted over $1.5 million in those holdups and never stayed in either bank longer than 8 minutes. Investigators believe these suspects were also involved in an armored car robbery in the West Valley area in June of 1995. In this robbery, the suspects killed a guard and stole $120,000. In March of 1996, also in the West Valley area, masked gunmen in a white vehicle shot at an armored car with an AK-47. The armored car escaped, and the suspect's vehicle was later found burned. Unknown to the LAPD, in October of 1993, Glendale police arrested Larry Phillips and Emil Matasareanu for conspiracy to commit robbery. During that arrest, police discovered the suspects to be in possession of 2 assault rifles, various handguns, body armor, and 3,000 rounds of ammunition. A plea bargain resulted in minimum time served for the two. They were later able to obtain a court order to have their weapons returned. It is these 2 men who would cause 45 minutes of terror on Friday, February 28, 1997. It was a sunny, breezy day that Friday morning. A group of customers had gathered in the Bank of America at 6600 Laurel Canyon Boulevard. For the moment, everything was business as usual. North Hollywood Division had its usual small deployment of officers in the field. The bulk of the day watch was not scheduled to come on until 10 a.m. At 9:17 a.m., officers Martin Perello and Lauren Farrell were driving southbound on Laurel Canyon between Archwood and Kittredge Streets. Their radio picked up a communications broadcast asking for any North Hollywood unit to handle a business burglary. At that same moment, Perello looked to his left and saw something unusual.
I just looked over, and I just saw him there, standing in broad daylight.
5840, requesting assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress at the Bank of America. Laurel Canyon north of Kittredge. Shots fired.
Farrell and Perello immediately took positions in the bank's south parking lot. They directed other officers as they arrived in response to their call for assistance. Inside the bank, the 2 suspects began their takeover robbery. Matasareanu fired a large burst of gunfire to get past the security barrier.
Guys walked in, they looked like they were RoboCop. I mean, they were so heavily armed, and they looked dangerous.
Our units officer needs help. Laurel Canyon, north of Kittredge, at the Bank of America. The shots fired.
L40, be advised, I got 2 witnesses over here say there's possibly 2 or 3 suspects inside, possible AK-47s. They're wearing ski masks and dark clothing.
Clad in ski masks and body armor and carrying high-powered assault rifles, the 2 suspects forced everyone in the bank to the floor.
Right after they came in, they started shooting at the doors to get into the back where the tellers were at.
Outside, officers began to deploy and surround the bank.
Stay free, we want someone to position themselves. Stay free to watch the front door. We don't think the suspects know you're here.
Felt like I was in Bosnia or something, just fully automatic weapons just going, screaming, you know, get down, we want all the money. If you push the silent alarm, we're going to kill everybody in the bank.
L40, more shots are being fired from inside the bank.
Switching out 40, more shots are being fired from the suspects at Laurel Canyon, north of Kittredge, at the Bank of America.
Stay free, I want 1 unit on the north side, I want a unit on the south side, and I want a unit on the back, if possible.
By now, units had deployed north of the bank on Archwood Street and to the west in the Hughes and Builders Emporium parking lot. Other officers covered the east side of the bank from the backyard of the house near the old bank drive-through canopy. The suspects had been inside the bank for 8 minutes. The time was 9:25. The suspects came out through the bank's northwest door and began firing.
Everybody stay down, rapid automatic fire, the cannon in the area was fired. Everything on hand, we have large shots fired. Large shots fired, 6600, Laurel Canyon Boulevard.
Their first targets were the officers and citizens at the corner of Laurel Canyon and Archwood. Sergeant Dean Haynes, 15L40, Officer Martin Whitfield, 9L89, and 2 citizens were injured during the exchange of gunfire. The suspects continued to shoot from the doorway. Their rounds shattered a light pole and riddled a police car with bullets. Officers across the street began firing at the suspects. The gunmen then turned their attention to the officers and detectives near the key shack in the Hughes parking lot. Citizens and officers alike sought some sort of protective cover from the deadly gunfire. Glass shattered, rounds skipped by, and nothing seemed like sufficient protection. Officers Stuart Guy and James Zavoravan and detectives William Krulak and Tracy Angeles moved away from the key shack for better cover. As they dashed for safety, the suspects shot all 4 of them.
Before the buildings, before the parking lot. We to form a recovery unit and pick up this officer.
They're requesting a supervisor to form a recovery unit to pick up the officer.
After going in and out the bank door twice during the shooting, the suspects finally grabbed the money bag and walked to their getaway car in the north parking lot of the bank. As the suspects were leaving the bank doorway, Van Nuys officers Anthony Kabunik and Todd Schmitz formulated a plan to rescue Officer Guy and Detective Angeles. Drawing on their mobile field force training, the officers drove their vehicle quickly to the downed officer's location. With the help of Detective Angeles and with the threat of automatic gunfire menacing, they placed Officer Guy into the back seat of the police car. Just as they practiced during training, they drove in reverse away from the scene. Once safely out of the parking lot, they drove Officer Guy to a waiting paramedic ambulance.
Suspect on the north side of the building is walking around like nothing. He's got 1847, 2 of them are dressed in all black, heavy body armor.
Surrounded by officers, the suspects began to fire a barrage of bullets. Phillips initially targeted the detectives in the yard behind the east wall of the bank. Casually, almost nonchalantly, Phillips retrieved extra ammunition from his utility web belt and reloaded his assault rifle. Officers, maintaining their distance, returned fire with shotguns and handguns. Peppered by rounds from the officers, Phillips fired furiously to the north and west. Just north of Archwood on the west sidewalk, 9L89 Officer Whitfield lay by a tree bleeding profusely from a severe gunshot wound to his leg. Like the citizens by the police car in the intersection, he was pinned down by automatic weapon fire. Across the street from Officer Whitfield at the Del Taco, officers continued to engage the suspect.
Pour fire in on the suspect. I'm going to make an attempt to get to the wounded officer.
Not giving ground, officers continued to fire on the suspect.
Unit 37, and let the steering is up in the air.
637 repeat.
Steering is up in the air. Let him go higher.
Now, Phillips turned his attention to the sky. He fired indiscriminately at police and news helicopters.
We've just been informed that the suspect is shooting at our helicopter and the other helicopters. So I'm going to try to keep a picture with you, but we are being shot at this time.
The suspect is walking along the east side of the bank. He's just daring people to come after him. He's got additional weapons. The trunk is open on his vehicle. Should be out 10 and somebody has a shot. Take it. Suspect dead. To any unit that is available to go to BND and pick up some weapons.
Outgunned, officers sought better weapons from a nearby gun store. Once again, both suspects fired their automatic weapons as the wounded huddled in fear. With no weapons yet available from the gun store, 15L10 repeated his request for SWAT.
We need someone here here with some heavy guns. We need SWAT code 3.
Phillips continued his unrelenting hail of bullets.
15L10, contact North Hollywood Station, have them bring extra reserve ammunition out to the scene, code 3.
Slowly, with Phillips on foot and Matasareanu in the car, the suspects began to leave the parking lot. Using the car as shield, like an infantryman with a tank, Phillips walked north towards the driveway. Officers continued to fire and prevent their escape, only to draw more gunfire in return.
Roger, at Laurel Canyon.
The suspect is in the vehicle and has not come out. He may be hit. The other suspect is walking on the inside of the vehicle. He's taking aim now. Everybody down.
Everybody down, shots are being fired. One suspect is possibly injured inside the vehicle, and one is outside the white vehicle to the rear of the bank.
South of the bank, SWAT officers had arrived and began to organize a rescue attempt for the downed officer and citizens. Still surrounded, Phillips took cover before unleashing another barrage of gunfire. Firing furiously, Phillips left the parking lot on foot as Matasareanu continued to drive the white getaway car. Phillips quickly took cover under a tractor-trailer truck.
We've got one suspect driving the white vehicle eastbound from the north parking lot. We've got one suspect on foot. The suspect on foot is behind a long truck trailer rig.
999, hang in there. 9837 is almost there.
9, thank you. Thank you for talking.
SWAT is moving in. There's one suspect eastbound from the north side of the parking lot in the vehicle. The other one is on foot near the long trailer. SWAT is en route to 6600 Laurel Canyon across from Del Taco for the officer down. 989, 989, come in. The suspects are moving eastbound near Archwood.
Down to only a 9mm handgun after a malfunction on his AK-47, Phillips emerged and walked east toward the officers and detectives at the corner of Archwood and Agnes. As he fired at them, the officers dove for cover. Wounded and now outgunned himself, Phillips chose to commit suicide. At the same time as Phillips shot himself, a round fired by an officer entered his neck and shoulder area and severed his spinal cord. Larry Eugene Phillips was dead. One suspect was in custody. One still outstanding.
Shots are being fired still. The officer is down at Archwood and Laurel Canyon. Everyone stand by. There's an armored car coming in full of police officers.
With the rescue team on the way, officers continued to get citizens out of the kill zone. Without regard for the location of the outstanding suspect, and with shots still ringing in the air, a detective, a SWAT officer, and 3 patrol officers used an armored truck driven by its civilian driver to pick up Officer Whitfield and the injured citizens at Archwood and Laurel Canyon.
So please broadcast the officers and rescued.
Out of the perimeter and a few streets east of the bank, Matasareanu attempted to commandeer another car.
Be advised, the suspect in the white vehicle is at limp. He's out of the vehicle. He's shooting at civilians.
The suspect is out of the vehicle at limp shooting at civilians.
Clearly injured from the officer's gunfire, Matasareanu limped around the car to the driver's side. Farther back, officers followed him on foot while maintaining a safe distance.
Guys, the suspect is back in the white vehicle. He is now moving slowly eastbound between Limp and Beck.
Hey, that's going to be on Archwood between Radford and Hines. Between Radford and Hines.
The suspect is now on Archwood between Radford and Hines.
Once more, Matasareanu tried to carjack a citizen's car. He fired through his own windshield at the driver of a 1961 Jeep pickup truck. The driver, injured and fearing for his life, ran away from Matasareanu.
There's a...
This is like a horse in the air. He just took a citizen's vehicle. It looks like a brown truck. It's facing on the westbound right now on Archwood.
The suspect took a citizen's vehicle in a brown truck westbound on Archwood.
SWAT officers Donnie Anderson, Steve Gomez, and Rick Massa, waved on by officers, approach what they think is an injured citizen in the Jeep truck. At the last moment, they realized it was actually the suspect.
Get fired, get fired.
More shots are being fired. Shots are being fired.
Up fire.
All units watch for crossfire.
Metro is engaging the suspect. All units stay back.
Too close to the suspect. They need to back off.
Unit that is close to the suspect, back off per cycle 14.
That unit is a Metro unit, ma'am, and they're engaging the suspect. They're not able to back off.
An intense close-quarters gun battle ensued. Mata Serrano was pinned down by the automatic gunfire of the SWAT officers.
Be advised, the suspect is thrown out. He may be shooting underneath the vehicle towards officers.
The officer is thrown out and possibly shooting at the officers from under the vehicle on Archwood between Radford and Hines.
He shot at both the SWAT officers and at other officers west of him on the south side of the street. One individual officer fired his 9mm at any body part Mata Serrano left exposed. The diversion provided by the other officer's shooting allowed the SWAT trio to gain a better angle to stop the suspect. Finally, the momentum shifted. The police gained the upper hand with better weapons and superior tactics. Mata Serrano, weakened from numerous gunshot wounds, lost his will to fight. The SWAT officers moved from their proned-out positions and slowly made a tactical approach. Other officers who had followed on foot stayed back until the SWAT officers ensured it was safe to approach. The time was 9:59 a.m. 34 minutes after it began, the gun battle ended. Both suspects were in custody.
Okay, air aids to control. Be advised, there's two suspects in custody. One is on Archwood and Agnes, and one is on Archwood between Radford and Hines. Those two suspects are in custody. Metro has one in custody, and North Hollywood has another one in custody.
The entire robbery and shootout lasted approximately 45 minutes. The two suspects fired over 1,100 rounds. 32 LAPD officers and detectives fired over 550 rounds. The suspects wounded 9 LAPD officers and 2 citizens. One black and white police car received 57 separate bullet holes. The kiosk, directly across the street from the bank and used for cover by officers, received over 150 bullet holes. After the suspects were taken into custody, SWAT officers cleared the area. During the next 12 hours, Metropolitan Division personnel, including canine units, conducted a search for additional suspects in a 1-square-mile residential area. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Special Enforcement Bureau assisted in the search. The FBI SWAT team was also available to assist. At approximately 11:30 p.m., the department terminated the search when there was no evidence of additional suspects. The bank robbery resulted in a multi-agency response involving personnel from many city, state, federal, and private agencies. The command post began on the trunk of a vehicle and soon moved to a furniture store equipped with tables and television sets. Later, the command post moved to the department mobile command post vehicles. The weapons recovered from the suspects included 3 fully automatic AK-47 rifles, 1 fully automatic .308 caliber HK-91 rifle, 1 fully automatic .223 caliber Bushmaster M15, and 1 semi-automatic 9mm Beretta pistol. A simple stovepipe malfunction disabled the AK-47 Phillips discarded at the tractor trailer. A round fired by an unknown officer disabled the HK-91 assault rifle used by the suspects. At the time officers took the suspects into custody, Phillips had approximately 400 rounds of ammunition in cylinder drums. Mata Serrano had approximately 240 rounds of ammunition in magazines and drums. Their vehicle contained an additional 2,000 rounds of ammunition. Officers recovered other items from the suspect's white Chevrolet Celebrity, including a police scanner, 2 nylon ammunition bags, including 6 30-round AK-47 magazines in each bag, 2 ski masks, and 1 web belt containing 4 drum magazines. Suspect Larry Eugene Phillips was 26 years old, 6 feet tall, and weighed 190 pounds. At the time of the robbery, he wore 43 pounds of custom-modified body armor covering his arms, legs, and torso. Phillips' clothing and body armor had been struck by numerous rounds fired by officers. He received over 9 wounds from officers' handguns, including a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chin and a simultaneous fatal wound from an officer's bullet that traveled through his right shoulder and severed his spinal cord. Phillips had told his family that he would never be taken alive. He liked to watch such action movies as Heat and Speed. Phillips had taken phenobarbital, a relaxant, prior to the robbery. Suspect Emil Matasareanu was 30 years old, 6 feet 2, and 275 pounds. At the time of the robbery, Matasareanu wore side wraparound body armor on his torso with a front trauma plate, but no body armor on his arms or legs. Like his partner, he had also taken phenobarbital prior to the robbery. Matasareanu received 29 bullet wounds from 9mm and .223 rounds. Officer Martin Whitfield, 29 years old, with 6.5 years on the department, received gunshot wounds to his leg, arm, and chest. He is still off duty, recovering from his injuries. Officer Stuart Guy, 31 years old, with 7 years on the department, received a gunshot wound to a leg and an arm. He is still off duty, recovering from his injuries. Officer James Zavoravan, 26 years old, with 8 months on the department, received a gunshot wound to the back. He has returned to work. Sergeant Dean Haynes, 41 years old, with 16 years on the department, received a gunshot wound to one shoulder and the legs. He has returned to work. Detective William Krulak, 49 years old, with 26 years on the department, received a gunshot wound to the right ankle. He has returned to work. Detective Tracy Angeles, 29 years old, with 6.5 years on the department, received a grazing wound to the stomach and buttocks. She has returned to work. Officer Conrado Torres, 36 years old, with 7 years on the department, received a grazing wound to the neck. He has returned to work. Detective Earl Valadares, 51 years old, with 26 years on the department, received a superficial wound to the head. He has returned to work. Officer John Goodman, 28 years old, with 6.5 years on the department, received lacerations to his face from broken glass and an injury to his knee. He has returned to work. On the United States Marine Corps Iwo Jima Memorial, there is an inscription describing the bravery and courage of the Marines who fought there. Uncommon valor was a common virtue. Many would agree this phrase describes the heroic actions of the officers of the Los Angeles Police Department that February morning in North Hollywood. Officer Lauren Farrell and his partner saw the suspects when they first entered the bank. Those officers were 2 of the many heroes on February 28th. A reporter asked Farrell if he had been given the chance, would he have gone the other way? Farrell gave a one-word answer: never.